Michael Reeves had always been a man who minded his own business. At 43, he'd worked harder for everything he owned. His modest but well-maintained two-story home, the gleaming silver Tesla in his driveway, and especially the backyard swimming pool that had consumed 3 summers and weekends and a sizable chunk of his savings. That pool represented more than just a place to cool off during Arizona's brutal summers. It was a symbol of his perseverance and success, which made it all the more infuriating to stand at his kitchen window at 7:13 a.m. on a Saturday morning, coffee mug suspended halfway to his lips, watching his next-door neighbor, Patricia Wilcox. Trish to her friends, that woman to the neighborhood HOA, and Pool Karen, as she would soon become in the viral video that would change both their lives, methodically emptying gallon cans of navy blue paint into this pristine aquamarine pool. "What the actual?" Michael whispered, his brain struggling to process the scene unfolding before him. This wasn't a hallucination or a bizarre dream. This was happening, right now, in real time. Trish moved with the purposeful efficiency of someone who had planned this attack. She wore gardening gloves, her silver-streaked blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, dressed in what appeared to be her Sunday best, as if she were attending a social function rather than committing criminal property damage. Most disturbing of all, her face showed no rage, just cold determination as she appended the 4th can of paint, watching with apparent satisfaction as blue clouds bloomed beneath the water's surface. Michael's paralysis broke. He slammed his mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim and onto the granite countertop. He lunged for his phone, fingers trembling as he dialed 911. But even as the dispatcher's voice came on the line, a strange calm settled over him. "Ma'am, my name is Michael Reeves at 1422 Saguaro Lane. My neighbor is currently vandalizing my property, dumping paint into my swimming pool. Yes, right now. I'd like to report it." His voice was steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "And I should mention, this isn't the first incident. I've got everything on camera." Indeed, the security system Michael had installed 3 weeks earlier, after finding his carefully manicured rose bushes mysteriously decimated one morning, was capturing every moment of Trish's methodical destruction from multiple angles. What she didn't know was that the system had already sent alerts to Michael's phone when she first trespassed onto his property, and that the police were already on their way. The feud between Michael and Patricia had begun 6 months earlier, shortly after Michael was elected to the Homeowners Association board. His first official act had been to vote in favor of denying Patricia's request to build a garden shed that violated the neighborhood's height restrictions, a small matter he had thought at the time, just following the rules everyone had agreed to when moving into Desert Palms Estates. But Patricia had taken it personally. First came the late-night noise complaints about parties Michael never hosted, then anonymous reports to the city about non-existent code violations, pamphlets about drought-appropriate landscaping left in his mailbox despite his xeriscaped front yard, and now this, the nuclear option in their Cold War of suburban hostilities. As Michael watched Patricia empty a 5th can of paint into his pool, his phone buzzed with a text alert from his security system. Motion detected at the front door. He switched camera views to see 2 police cruisers pulling silently into his driveway, their lights off. The officers were approaching his front door with practiced caution. Michael allowed himself a grim smile. Patricia might have chosen nuclear, but she had no idea that he had already built a bomb shelter. "Ma'am," he said to the dispatcher, his eyes never leaving the spectacle in his backyard, "the officers are here, and they're about to witness something interesting." Michael opened his front door before the officers could knock. Officer Rivera, a stocky man with kind eyes that belied his no-nonsense demeanor, stood on the porch alongside Officer Chen, a younger woman whose hand rested casually near her utility belt. "Mr. Reeves?" Officer Rivera asked, his voice low and professional. "Yes, that's me. Thank you for coming so quickly," Michael replied, stepping aside to let them in. "She's still back there." Michael led the officers through his home to the kitchen, where the sliding glass door offered a perfect view of Patricia's handiwork. In the 5 minutes it had taken the police to arrive, she had progressed to what appeared to be her final can of paint. The pool, once a crystal-clear turquoise, now resembled a roiling cauldron of midnight blue sludge. "That's Mrs. Wilcox from next door," Michael explained quietly. "We've had disagreements in the past, but nothing like this." Officer Chen's eyebrows shot up as she took in the scene. "Is she aware that you have security cameras?" Michael shook his head. "I don't think so. I installed them after some other incidents, but I didn't advertise it." "Smart," Officer Rivera muttered. "Let's go have a chat with your neighbor." The 3 stepped out onto the back patio. Patricia was so engrossed in her task that she didn't notice them until Officer Rivera cleared his throat loudly. Patricia froze, the final half-empty can of paint tilted over the water. For one surreal moment, it was as if someone had hit pause on a bizarre performance art piece. The morning sun gleaming on the contaminated pool, birds chirping obliviously in the background, and Patricia Wilcox caught in flagrant delicto with damning evidence dripping from her gloved hands. When she turned, her face underwent a remarkable transformation. The cold determination vanished, replaced by a mask of innocent confusion, then outrage, not of someone caught in wrongdoing, but of someone affronted by the very suggestion. "Officers, thank goodness you're here," Patricia said, her voice honeyed with false relief. She straightened her posture and gestured toward Michael with the paint can, sending blue droplets splattering across the concrete. "This man has been harassing me for months. I was just trying to—" "Put the paint can down, ma'am," Officer Chen interrupted firmly. Patricia blinked, momentarily thrown off her script. "Excuse me." "Put the paint can down and step away from the pool," Officer Chen repeated, her hand still resting near her belt. "This is ridiculous," Patricia scoffed, but she set the can down with exaggerated care. "I'm the victim here." "Ma'am, we received a call about vandalism in progress," Officer Rivera said, stepping forward. "And it appears we've arrived to find exactly that." "Vandalism?" Patricia's laugh was brittle. "This is a community dispute that's been ongoing for—" "Mrs. Wilcox," Michael interrupted, unable to contain himself any longer, "you're trespassing on my property and destroying it." "How exactly would you define vandalism?" Patricia's eyes narrowed to slits. "You know very well what this is about, Michael. The HOA board meeting on Tuesday." "Actually," Officer Rivera cut in, "why don't you tell us what this is about while we sort things out?" He nodded to Officer Chen, who began taking photographs of the scene with her department-issued phone. "I'd be happy to show the officers my security footage," Michael offered, pulling out his smartphone. "The system alerted me as soon as Mrs. Wilcox entered my yard. I have everything recorded, from the moment she climbed over my fence with the paint cans to now." Patricia's face drained of color, the realization hitting her like a physical blow. Her eyes darted to the discreet camera mounted under the eave of Michael's roof, then to the secondary camera positioned near the pool filter system. For the first time, uncertainty crept into her expression. "You've been recording me," she commanded, her voice rising. "That's an invasion of privacy. I'll sue you for—" "Mrs. Wilcox," Officer Chen interjected coolly, "there's no expectation of privacy on someone else's property that you've entered without permission." Patricia's mouth opened and closed several times like a fish suddenly finding itself on dry land. Finally, she drew herself up, clutching her designer handbag to her chest like armor. "This is all a misunderstanding," she declared with as much dignity as she could muster. "I was simply trying to help. Michael's pool has had algae problems all summer. Ask anyone in the neighborhood. I was applying a treatment." Michael stared at her, dumbfounded by the audacity of a lie. "A treatment? With house paint?" Michael stood frozen in his doorway, trying to comprehend the scene before him. His immaculately maintained front yard, the desert landscape he'd spent thousands designing with native plants and artistic rock formations, was now a chaotic battlefield of upturned cacti, crushed succulents, and what appeared to be the entire contents of his mailbox strewn across the gravel. But that wasn't what made his stomach drop. Standing beside a white Lexus SUV parked haphazardly at the curb were three women, all bearing a striking resemblance to Patricia in both their appearance and their outraged expressions. The eldest, a silver-haired woman who could only be Patricia's mother, clutched a garden trowel like a weapon. Flanking her were two younger women, one in her 30s wearing expensive athleisure wear, the other barely out of her teens in crew dock shorts and a Desert Palms Country Club polo shirt. The Wilcox women, Patricia's mother and daughters. Michael had seen them at neighborhood functions but had never spoken to them directly. Now they were vandalizing his property in broad daylight, as if it were a coordinated family activity. "Hey," Michael called out, finding his voice. "What do you think you're doing?" The women froze momentarily, startled by his appearance. Then the oldest stepped forward, pointing the trowel at him accusingly. "You," she spat, "you think you can bully my daughter and get away with it? We know what you've been doing." "Mrs. Wilcox," Michael began, then corrected himself. "I mean, Ms. It's Dr. Eleanor Wilcox," the woman snapped. "And these are my granddaughters, Amanda and Brittany. We're here to support Trish." Amanda, the older daughter, crossed her arms. "Mom called us when she saw your post in the neighborhood Facebook group this morning. Did you really think public humiliation was the answer?" Michael blinked in confusion. "What Facebook posts? I haven't posted anything." "Don't play dumb," Brittany chimed in, her voice dripping with contempt as she waved her smartphone. "The whole neighborhood is talking about it. Local Karen gets what she deserves. With her full name and address, people are already driving by to gawk." Michael's mind raced. He hadn't posted anything online. He'd been too busy dealing with the paint situation and the police to even think about social media. Then it hit him, Dave. His brother must have posted something after seeing the security footage that Michael's system had automatically shared with him as an emergency contact. "Listen," Michael said, trying to keep his voice calm and reasonable. I didn't post anything online. But more importantly, that doesn't justify what you're doing to my property. There are police officers in my backyard right now dealing with Patricia. I suggest you stop what you're doing before you join her in trouble. Dr. Wilcox scoffed. Police? You called the police on a neighborhood dispute. Typical. Men like you always hide behind authority when confronted by strong women. Before Michael could respond to this bewildering statement, Officer Rivera appeared at his shoulder, taking in the new scene with practiced efficiency. Sir, is there another problem here? He asked, his hand moving to rest on his radio. These women are Patricia Wilcox's family, Michael explained. They'd vandalized my front yard while we were dealing with the situation in the back. Officer Rivera stepped forward. Ladies, I'm going to need you to step away from this property immediately and identify yourselves. A tense standoff followed, with Dr. Wilcox attempting the same indignant denial strategy that had failed her daughter minutes earlier. But as Officer Chen emerged from the house with a handcuffed Patricia and Tao, the family's unified front began to crumble. Mom, Patricia gasped, seeing her mother holding the incriminating garden trowel. What are you doing here? I told you I'd handle it. Handle it? Amanda hissed. You said you were just going to leave a strongly worded note, not whatever this is. Patricia's face flushed red. Well, you're one to talk. You're the one who told me he deserved consequences after what he posted about Dad's bankruptcy on the community bulletin board. I never said to vandalize his pool, Amanda protested. Michael's head was spinning. Wait, bankruptcy? Community bulletin board? I never posted anything about anyone's financial situation. As the Wilcox women fell into bickering amongst themselves, Officer Chen guided Patricia toward one of the patrol cars while Officer Rivera called for backup to deal with the additional suspects. Michael stood to the side, utterly baffled by the rapid unraveling of events. His next-door neighbor on the other side, Ron Thompson, stepped out of his house, drawn by the commotion. The retired high school principal approached cautiously, looking from the police cars to Michael with concern. Mr. Rao, please step away from the vehicle, Officer Rivera called out as he crossed the street. The man reluctantly complied, removing his sunglasses and placing them carefully on the roof of his Tesla. From across the street, Michael could see his neighbor's uncanny resemblance to himself. Same height, similar build, even the same haircut. No wonder people had been confusing them. But while Michael preferred casual clothes and kept a low profile, Michael Rao exuded the confidence of someone accustomed to being noticed. From his Italian leather shoes to his perfectly tailored blazer. Is there a problem, officer? Rao asked, his voice carrying across the quiet street. I was just getting home from a business trip. Sir, we're investigating the incident involving your neighbors, Officer Rivera explained, gesturing toward the chaos unfolding on Michael's property. Would you mind answering a few questions? Meanwhile, Officer Chen had called for another patrol car to assist with the Wilcox women, who were now being separated and questioned individually. Patricia sat in the back of one police car, watching the scene unfold through the window with a mixture of confusion and mounting horror. Michael approached Patricia's daughter Amanda, who seemed the most rational of the group. Look, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding, he began. I'm Michael Reeves. I think you confused me with Michael Rao across the street. Amanda's eyes widened. Wait, you're not the Michael who posted all those things about my family? No, Michael said firmly. I've never posted anything about your family. I barely use social media. Amanda's expression shifted from hostility to uncertainty. But you're on the HOA board. You denied Mom's garden shed application. I am on the board, Michael conceded, but I actually voted in favor of your mother's shed. It was approved with modifications. The height needed to be reduced by 8 inches to comply with regulations. The approval letter went out last week. That's not what Mom said, Amanda replied slowly, pulling out her phone and scrolling through messages. She said that awful Michael R. rejected it completely and made snide comments about our family finances. Michael shook his head. That wasn't me. Rao is the board secretary. He would have signed the approval letter, but I can assure you I never made any comments about your family's finances. As they spoke, something caught Michael's eye, a familiar logo on Amanda's phone case. Desert Palms Real Estate, the agency where he knew Patricia worked as an agent. Your mother works in real estate, right? He asked, a new theory forming. Amanda nodded. For 20 years, she's one of the top producers in the area, or she was. Amanda hesitated, then sighed. The firm let her go last month, after that online review. What online review? Someone using the name Michael R. left a scathing 1-star review on every platform, claiming she tried to hide serious defects during a home sale. It went viral locally. The broker had to let her go, even though she's insisted it wasn't true. Across the street, Michael Rowe was now engaged in an intense conversation with Officer Rivera, repeatedly shaking his head and gesturing emphatically. Michael couldn't hear what was being said, but Rowe's body language screamed defensive. "I think we need to clear something up," Michael said, turning to Officer Chen, who had approached them. "Can we get everyone together? There's been a serious case of mistaken identity." 20 minutes later, an extraordinary scene was unfolding in Michael's driveway. Two additional officers had arrived, helping to maintain order as the truth gradually emerged. Michael Rowe stood apart from the group, arms crossed defensively, while Patricia and her family were seated on the garden wall, their expressions ranging from embarrassment to lingering anger. "So let me make sure I understand," Officer Rivera said, notepad in hand. "Mr. Rowe, you posted negative reviews about Mrs. Wilcox's real estate business using only your first name and last initial." "Those reviews were my honest opinion as a consumer," Rowe replied stiffly. "She showed me a property 6 months ago and failed to disclose foundation issues that cost me thousands in inspection fees before I walked away from the deal." "And you also posted information about Mr. Wilcox's business bankruptcy on the neighborhood forum," Officer Chen added. "It was relevant public information," Rowe insisted. "The community had a right to know that someone who couldn't manage their own finances was applying to join the neighborhood financial committee. Patricia's husband had indeed filed for bankruptcy for his contracting business 8 months earlier, a fact that the family had been trying to keep quiet while they rebuilt." "And the garden shed application?" Michael asked, unable to contain himself any longer. 3 weeks later, Michael sat in his newly restored backyard, sipping iced tea and marveling at how quickly life could change. His pool gleamed once again with pristine blue water, not the Navy disaster from Patricia's paint cans, but the original aquamarine he had so carefully selected. The restoration had been expensive, requiring the pool to be completely drained, scrubbed, resealed, and refilled, but he hadn't paid a penny for it. The Wilcox family's insurance company had covered everything, eager to settle the matter quickly after the viral firestorm that engulfed their clients. Michael's security footage, which his brother Dave had indeed posted online, had amassed over 12 million views across various platforms. Local news stations had run the story for 3 consecutive nights. By day 2, national outlets had picked it up, dubbing it the tale of two Michaels. Even Patricia's awkward moment of realization, captured perfectly on Michael's driveway camera, had become a popular meme. Asterisk when you realize you've been terrorizing the wrong neighbor for 6 months. Asterisk. The fallout had been swift and multifaceted. Patricia and her family had narrowly avoided jail time through a plea deal that included significant community service hours, probation, and full restitution for the damages. Dr. Eleanor Wilcox, on learning that she had been caught on camera declaring that men like you always hide behind authority when confronted by strong women, had quietly resigned from her position as head of gender studies at the local community college, citing personal reasons. Michael Rowe, while not criminally liable, had faced consequences of his own. The Desert Palms Estates HOA had convened an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove him from all committee positions after reviewing his pattern of behavior. His software consulting business had suffered when clients discovered his habit of posting retaliatory online reviews and causing neighborhood discord. Last Michael had heard, Rowe was putting his house on the market, claiming Desert Palms had become too toxic for him. For Michael himself, the aftermath had been surprisingly positive. Neighbors who had previously confused him with Rowe now made a point of greeting him warmly. Several had brought welcome baskets and apology cards once the full story emerged. Ron Thompson, his retired principal neighbor, had organized a neighborhood cleanup day to help restore Michael's vandalized front yard, drawing a turnout of over 30 residents. Even more unexpected was the outpouring of support from strangers. His inbox had filled with messages from people sharing their own stories of mistaken identity and neighborhood disputes. A pool supply company had offered him free maintenance for a year in exchange for a social media mention. A security system manufacturer wanted him to become a brand ambassador. His brother Dave, who had accidentally launched the viral phenomenon, was now helping Michael sort through various offers and opportunities that continued to arrive daily. "More tea?" a voice asked, breaking into his thoughts. Michael looked up to see Carla Williams standing beside his lounge chair with a pitcher in hand. The newly divorced real estate agent had moved into the neighborhood just days before the incident and had been one of the first to offer assistance afterward. What had begun as neighborly support had quickly evolved into something more, with shared dinners and long conversations under the desert stars. "Thanks," Michael said, smiling as she refilled his glass. "Hard to believe it's only been 3 weeks." "I know," Carl agreed, taking the seat beside him. "When I decided to move here, I expected a quiet suburban life, not front-row seats to the neighborhood drama of the year." Michael laughed. "Welcome to Desert Palms, where mistaken identity leads to felony vandalism." As they chatted, Michael's phone buzzed with a notification. It was an email from his attorney with a surprising update. Patricia Wilcox wanted to meet with him. "Are you going to do it?" Carla asked when he showed her the message. Michael considered it carefully. The rage and betrayal he'd initially felt had gradually subsided as he learned more about the circumstances that had led to that fateful morning. Patricia had lost her career and nearly her freedom due to a vindictive neighbor who shared his name. While nothing excused her actions, he could almost understand the perfect storm of misplaced anger and wounded pride that had driven her to such extremes. "I think I will," he decided, "but not alone. I'll bring my lawyer. And maybe Dave. He's developed a strange fascination with the whole situation." The meeting took place the following afternoon at Michael's attorney's office downtown. Patricia arrived alone, noticeably thinner and more subdued than the woman who had,